No, I want to tell everybody to make sure they start to like us and go subscribe to our page. I know we're still low on our subscribers, but we're kind of growing. And we're doing something really important. And like I was telling you, the importance of it is like really growing for me every time that we do it. So, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends for those of you who are already subscribed. And thank you to those who have already subscribed.
Yeah, it's super cool, man. Super cool.
No, super cool.
I'm glad that people are starting to enjoy it and starting to get into it, because I think they're like you said, they are important conversations.
Yeah,
and we're a lot more alike than different.
I kind of wanted to jump right into something right quick, if we may. Santeria is made after Nothing But a G Thang.
Yeah, it's 96. Yeah,
you can kind of tell. So one thing that I kind of noticed about this song, Santeria, I was like, Nothing But a G Thang even changed the way like pop and rock music sounded on the West Coast.
Right.
Because and correct me if I'm wrong, like just what I'm hearing, I don't even know if it's the music. It's almost like the energy and the vibe that the music is giving off on Santeria is succinctly different from the rock and roll that you're getting prior to the Chronic.
Yeah.
Okay, so so heavily influenced.
It's also like specific to them too. I mean, like it's some of it's a Chronic thing and some of it's a SoCal thing too. Like, there's like the ska reggae. I mean, like all of that kind of vibe going in there too.
So can we kind of start with Santeria today?
Yeah, man, sure. That's absolutely. Let me flip my paper to make sure we're on the right place. I would like to say this before we get into it too much. I would like to dedicate at least this portion of the episode to all the mostly little white girls that I see at school who wear the shirts with, say, Sublime with the big sunshine on them, and I try to like engage them in conversation about it, and they're like, "What? That's a band?"
Right.
Yeah. So this is for all of them, even though none of them will watch this. But so this is Sublime. And this is a song. It's not actually from that album. That sunshine logo, you know what I'm talking about? I'll put it on the screen.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But it's from their first album called 40 Ounces to Freedom, which can kind of give you an insight into the kind of vibe they're rocking. But yeah, that's from their first album. This one's from their most famous album from 1990. This is from 96. So self-titled.
They're from Long Beach, correct?
They met at Cal State, Long Beach. Yeah.
Okay. So I think one of the things, like, people understand, like, first of all, Long Beach is a really fun city. And Long Beach is sectioned off.
Okay.
Like literally south, north, east, and west. It's like what part you're in Long Beach matters.
Okay.
In terms of your safety. That's why I was like, because there are certain areas of Long Beach, and obviously Snoop has alluded to these areas where, well, it's very gang heavy.
Yep.
And then there are other places where, that's where you catch the ferry to Catalina from. That's where you take the, so it's like that kind of effect too. It's like succinctly California on both sides in terms of like culturally what it offers, visually what it offers, and even inner city angst what it offers.
Yeah. Wow. So it's covering all the bases.
Yeah, Long Beach covers a lot. You know what I mean? Long Beach covers a lot, just the city itself. And so that was one of the things that was striking to me when you told me Sublime was from Long Beach. I'm like, oh, well, and then you start listening to their music. I'm like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, it feels like Long Beach. Like I've never been there. I've never been to like Southern California. All my travels out there have been to the northern end, but San Francisco and north. But I went down to like Monterey and stuff too, but which is not that much further south than that, a few hours, but it's not SoCal at all by any stretch. But yeah, I have very much the same vibe in this song, and you hear it even in his lyrics, right? I mean, they call it a ska band kind of, but it's not really, because there's no horns and there's no like, but it mashes up like ska and punk and reggae and rock, and it has all of those kind of things all together. And so you have this like really chill vibe to the song and to all of their songs really. But the last verse starts with like, tell Sanchito if he knows what's good for him, he best go run and hide. Daddy's got a new 45 and I won't think twice to stick the barrel right down Sancho's throat. Believe me when I say I got something for his punk ass. Like, so he's got some of both of those things in
So
there.
that's what I mean about. I'm like, oh no, they're from Long Beach, because he's really
familiar with all the parts. Yes.
Yes, Santeria is doing a wonderful job of encompassing a lot of the things that encompass the totality of Long Beach, which is a great example of the totality that encompasses Southern California, or at least the diverse areas of Southern California. Like there are areas like, Irvine in Orange County that are not particularly diverse. I worked in Irvine, but there are areas like Long Beach, Costa Mesa, San Clemente. Of course, there are pockets in LA, East LA, you know what I'm saying? Right. Of course, with that. But it's such a big cultural melting pot. Like one of the biggest hip hop fans that I met and knew when I lived in California was a white dude named Brian. Guess where Brian was from and where Brian lived?
Probably Long Beach.
Long Beach, yeah. Like if there was a rap show, he would know before I would. Because in Long Beach is one of those towns when you said like all the ska punk reggae and like all that, it comes with Sublime. Well, like Long Beach had, well, at least when I was there, and this is early 2000s, early mid 2000s, it's a great live band area.
I can see that.
And it's really culturally diverse. And here's another thing that the song alludes to that I kind of wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
Well, California is very spiritually diverse too. There's a lot going on. And so even the title of Santeria and what he's talking about, like you'll see things, on the side of the street in California during the day that you won't see maybe anywhere else in this nation outside of certain parts of New York City. Just in terms of just like arbitrary, like what is that?
Yeah.
And so I think just all of that is in play with this song, and it still has that succinct, Southern California vibe. It's like as soon as the melody started playing, I was like, this makes me. I immediately like went to thoughts in my mind of driving down the 5 freeway when it's 75 degrees down. You know what I mean? Yep. Or on the 405. Like it immediately puts you in that place musically as well. So
it's a beautiful that's one of those cool things because I mean we're not switching over yet, but like Nothing But a G Thang does that too. Like that opening synth riff, like it's the same kind of riding in the car down the freeway kind of feel. And that's one of the reasons we paired these songs, other than the fact that they're both from Long Beach. Or at least Snoop and the band are both from Long Beach. And yeah, they're very summertime feeling songs to me anyway. Like they have that vibe.
Well, that's the vibe that you just get of Southern California, because it, like Tony says, well, it never rains in Southern California. It's like, I can tell you what all of the summers were like, nothing about what the winters were like, because I'm not sure if that was really winter that we just got. You know what I mean?
It was just December. Yeah.
That was winter? Oh, that's your cold.
Not really, no.
Right. Not in the pockets that I was living in and moving in. So these songs definitely encompass a certain vibe that goes with the aesthetic of California. It's like, hey, dude, relax, smoke some weed. Let's go right here. And, and that's kind of the vibe of this. But when you listen lyrically to what's going on both records,
it's a little more assertive. Yes.
Well, this is what I mean. You hear the free for all that California is on these records too. Even visually with Nothing But a G Thang, like you kind of see just how, like you just see how off the chain California is. So even though the groove and the melody and the vibe is really, really inviting and safe, you can tell lyrically from these songs, well, California is not necessarily that way all the time, though, is it?
No. And right. these people none of them did too. I mean, Bradley Nowell, the singer, guitarist, songwriter for Sublime, was a heroin addict and died of a heroin overdose at 28. Like, so he's, which is super sad because he was obviously super talented, but yeah, so he's obviously running in some more difficult spheres too. Like, so,
one of the things, how about this? Long Beach is one of probably the few areas that I saw too where I didn't see a ton of white affluence in Southern California. Okay. So that's what I mean. Like, no, the white boys coming out of Long Beach are a little bit different than those kids that are coming out of, Irvine and Laguna Hills and Anaheim Hills and even, like it's different. Like I remember being in those pockets and being in those areas and like, no, it's different. you know, I lived in Riverside. Like Chino Hills is
Hmm.
way, way different than like you know, it's
Yeah,
different in certain areas. Yeah. I want to get into lyrically. It's almost like this song made me feel like he went to see a witch doctor.
a little bit. Yeah, maybe.
A little bit. It's almost like he feels like somebody's put a hex on him or a curse on him. That's what I mean about like California being like spiritual, like very, very open. Like, you know, like there's a little bit of everything out there. You know what I mean? Like if you're looking for something out there spiritually, you will find it. And so when he's speaking to like wanting to kill the voodoo priest and the voodoo dolls and stuff, it's like, oh, somebody put a hex on you, you know?
Yeah,
Or somebody
he's
done
trying
something.
to. He wants to like kill or beat up. Yeah, actually, he's saying he wants to kill the man who stole his woman. I mean, that's the frame of the
Right,
song, right? Like that,
right.
and he's pissed at her too, obviously. But the majority of his anger is turned towards Sancho, like the person. He even calls him Sanchito near the end too, like which is kind of a condescending. When you put Ito, it means little, right? So
Yes.
it's just it's a little punk kind. It's got that little. I mean, he does it obviously lyrically to make it fit with the rhythm of the line too, but it also is kind of a little bit of this extra
Yeah,
too.
no, it's a great writing nuance to use
Hmm.
in the song because you know he's implying different things while rhythmically still keeping it going melody wise.
Hmm.
So it's very well done. That's one of those things that I guess is an exhibition of talent. So I mean, I don't want to steer too far off. He died of a heroin overdose. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. He died of a heroin overdose.
Hmm. Yeah.
So when was this?
I want to say it was not long after this. I don't think.
Oh wow. So they didn't do
No,
much.
they had a very short span career because this album, this one, has their two. I don't say they're only two famous songs, but the two songs that everybody knows. This one and "What I Got," which is where he actually shouts out Long Beach, and it is like, the love is what I got." I said, "Remember that," right? That's Sublime too. But he says, "Love's what I got. It's within my reach, and the Sublime style still straight from Long Beach. It all comes back to you." Yeah, I mean, that's part of that song. So um, he gives a direct shout out to Long Beach in that one. Yeah, he died in May of 1996. So
Oh
he,
wow.
yeah, they released this album 2 months after he died. Um,
Wow.
so they had recorded it. He had a little baby, and it was doing from what a little bit I've read about it, he was doing much better, and relapsed and OD'd shortly after this album. Well, actually, before this album was released. Obviously, they've been
Hmm.
playing the songs live, but
I mean, you know what my faith looks like. So this is why I don't believe in I believe words are powerful, you
mhm.
know. And so this song is called Santeria. You're telling me that this man died before this song, which is probably their biggest song, or is the other one
This
the
what
biggest
I
song?
got is probably a little bit bigger, but they're both. I
They're
would call them both like
comparable.
same comparable. Yeah, it would be like having "Give It Away" and "Under the Bridge" being both huge songs. Like they're
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, you know, this is more art imitating life a little bit. You know, there's a lot of danger in those lyrics.
Yeah,
You know
there
what I mean?
is for
A
sure.
lot of danger in there. And so, you know, this is around that dark time too, or this is probably the end of that dark time for rock and roll too.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
this would have been around the same time like What's the Story, Morning Glory was, and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
So, you know, Long Beach culturally can be very comparable to Seattle as well.
Okay.
Like Seattle is very musically diverse, like Long Beach is on
Hmm.
the hip hop and on the rock and roll side. But also, much like Long Beach, there's a lot of gang culture in Seattle too. You get what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
it's like a lot of these bands that we're hearing, you know,
Yeah.
they're what we would say in my culture, white boy bands,
Okay.
but they're still coming from areas where it's really culturally diverse. They're seeing a lot of gang culture. They're seeing a lot of drug abuse. They're seeing a lot of
Yeah.
violence. They're seeing a lot of the same things that we're seeing in the Black community, or I guess the nuances or the intricacies of the Black community in a negative way that get highlighted. Well,
Hmm.
it's like a lot of these bands that have these ethoses and these stars who were ODing or committing suicide per se,
Hmm.
where they're coming from areas. If you go look at the areas, and I know
Yeah.
this about Seattle because one of my best friends who I used to do music with is from the Central District of Seattle,
Hmm.
you know, and so his dad actually learned under Bruce Lee. And so that's what I mean about, well, his dad learned under Bruce Lee, but he's a former gang member. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. No,
Seattle's
Nirvana's actually, I mean, Nirvana says they're from Seattle. They're from Aberdeen, really. And like that, which is not
correct.
the same as
Well,
Seattle, obviously.
well, my guy's from Seattle. That's why I say Central District. That's
Right.
206.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Downtown.
saying? Aberdeen is really 253.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's what I'm saying. But Long Beach and Seattle very comparable, and so I'm starting to see some connective tissue to the environment, you know, and
Yep.
how the environment even affects the bands. And it's one of those things that shows you it's like, no, the environment, the socioeconomics matters. It's not just a black thing or a white thing.
Right.
You place people in these environments,
and that's what happens to them.
They become more dangerous people just inherently. The things that they say are more dangerous. The things that they do are more dangerous. Like, I don't know, talking about taking a 45 and killing somebody and then ODing on heroin. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's one of the. It's an interesting part of the song because, I mean, obviously he's talking really super tough. Like he's not. That's not. He doesn't say. I mean, so the contrast between like it's a happy-go-lucky melody and it's incredibly catchy. It sticks in your head.
Yes.
But he's also not playing at all, or it doesn't sound like he's playing either. And he's not speaking like he's playing. I mean, his opening line, to go circle back to the actual Santeria. For those of you who don't know, Santeria is like voodoo mashed with Catholicism, kind of. It has some of those elements of both sides, but there's still, so that's. But and he says at the beginning, I don't practice Santeria. I don't have a crystal ball. So like he's saying, to me anyway, he's saying like, I don't have a way of dealing with this passively. I'm not gonna like sit in my room and stab the voodoo doll or whatever. I'm gonna go out and I'm a man of he's basically talking about hunting them down, right? I mean, that's what the song is, the narrative of the song is.
Okay, so this is what I mean about like the part of it where it's like a little spiritually ambiguous. It's like, well, that makes me feel like he's been possessed by something, and the song is called
definitely
Santeria.
Possible.
You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so just me knowing California and just how like spiritually open it can be. Like you'll go to Venice Beach, Andrew, and you know, you'll just see a lot in a day.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I really don't know how else to express it. It's one of those things that you really have to live and see to like understand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those places you can lose yourself really quick in California, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You can lose yourself really, really quickly if you're not strong.
We'll have to have a different episode. Like there are lots of songs about California, obviously, that touch on this more specifically. The Eagles song Hotel California, which we will, I'm sure, get to in a different episode, is a very explicitly about going down that rabbit hole.
Yes.
And I'm sure there are hip hop songs that do similar kinds of things.
Well, we're kind of going to talk about one of them in a second, and like that,
there's a bunch, I'm sure. But yeah, it's the actually, I forgot about this one I was talking about where I've been earlier. I've been to Palm Springs too, which is not SoCal. It's like out in the desert in the hills, like out. So that's a weird ass place, man. No offense to people in Palm Springs, California, but like
California is weird, dude. Like it's fun and I love it, but it's got weird places. It's like you won't find it. It could be its own country. It's the only state that could be its own country. God, this is just so, it's funny, part of the reason why, we started doing this is to learn from each other. And then it's like, oh, well, he died. It's like, that's, and then you see people walking around with the Sublime shirts all the time, very comparable to what you see with the Nirvana shirts, and so,
very much like that.
Yeah. So it's the capitalization off of these men's, demise as well, kind of, isn't it? You know? And that gets into another spectrum that we really don't discuss on this show. It just kind of crossed my mind while we were thinking about that.
One of those things that I notice, and I was talking to one of my other West Charlotte friends actually this morning about this, that when we were talking about albums that were like, that made us feel good and they were uplifting in times like we were having trouble or whatever, that we put on Earth, Wind and Fire, or we put on Graceland, or whatever. Like we put on, there's these records we put on to kind of uplift our mood. And one of the things I told him was that one of the things this show has taught me or made me pay attention to more is how dark so much of the rock and roll stuff in the 90s was. It's dark. It's not just like a little dark.
So
It's bad dark.
So then you might understand why people like Tupac and Snoop and Dr. Dre and Scarface are feeling a certain type of way about how their music's being audited. That's been one of the things that's been kind of unraveling for me, is that now I can see a little bit more why the rappers are pissed off around that time too, in terms of the attention that they're getting for the lyrics that they're using, because they're like, are you listening to what these white boys are saying? Is essentially what the rappers are kind of saying, kind of low key, without trying to be like assholes and blow up their spot. Like Tupac's not going out and saying, well, you're not auditing Kurt Cobain and who's the lead singer of Sublime's name?
Bradley Nowell.
And Bradley Nowell. Like, they're not being audited to the level that Tupac is, where C. Dolores Tucker and what's his name are literally like running over their CDs and tapes with a steamroller. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
So it's a very, very dangerous time for music too, and that's another conversation too about why we started doing this show, because well, that's one of those things that separated us around the time when we were growing up. You see, like, we grew up in the era post civil rights, but I don't think people understand, and I don't want to get too deep or too political about it. Like,
a little bit, that's fine.
Slavery ended in 1865, but they just reformatted and reconstituted different versions of it until roughly, pretty much till the Great Depression happened, Andrew.
And it was a long time after that.
It pretty much for the next 50 years, until people were pretty much forced. No, I want to say it's not even the Great Depression. World War I is what really changed.
Yeah.
Because you really just couldn't afford to do it anymore. Like, literally couldn't afford to do it. We were going to lose the war if Black people didn't get involved. Period, point blank. Like, in America, and as far as fighting. Now, what you have with that is kind of the same thing post civil rights. There have been a lot of things done in our time that we're not privy to, that have tried to separate us. Music is actually one of those things, low key. The importance of us doing this is really, really growing for me, because I can see the separation in our era now. Now that we're older, it's like, oh, hold on. It's like, are you hearing the shit that these guys are saying?
Yeah, he's talking about sticking a 45 down somebody's throat. Like, this is not clean stuff.
So let's transition.
Just because he's not using the word motherfucker, like, it's not.
Right. So let's transition to Snoop and Dre. And this is what I mean. Well, Sublime and Nirvana are just pulling more covert operations than Dre and Snoop. Dre and Snoop's first song that they did together is called Deep Cover, where the hook goes, yeah, and you don't stop, because it's 187 on a motherfucking cop. But that's not that much
direct.
Different thing. But
yeah, exactly.
But how different is that than Mr. Noel here saying, I'm about to go grab my 45 and blow somebody's brains out? Just on a basis level, it's just as dangerous, except for one is just referencing doing it to a police officer. That's the only separation. But they try to create two separate worlds even when we're growing up. And so that's just something that I'm just realizing from doing this with you. It's like, oh man, because I've always felt this way. It's like, oh no, those guys aren't talking differently than the way my guys are talking. But this is just more and more proof to life the more we do this. And it's really important that we put these things together and show that we're not so separate.
And that was like the initial, or one of the initial things for the show, is that I wanted to talk about like how similar a lot of these ideas are, like that people who are coming from very different worlds are still talking about very similar things, and not just in the like, I want to get that girl kind of way. Because there's a lot of those songs too, but like that so many of these feelings like are universal. And this one in Santeria is kind of dangerous, obviously. It's like, this man stole my girl, I'm gonna pick him up. Like, this is, that's the, and that, regardless of whether somebody acts on it or not, that feeling is universal, right? Like, it's like you feel that, and in that song he's kind of going through that emotional spectrum live, sort of.
Yes, some of the beauty is in the fact, at least as a Black man, is that, well, I can see that inner city angst is not unique unto my community. Inner city angst happens when you're involved in an inner city angst type of environment, which Long Beach can be.
Yep.
which Seattle can be. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's like, no, it's not a black thing. It's not a Hispanic thing. That truly is it, what is it, pressure bust pipes?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, if you take somebody over here, place them over there, you can run the science experiments if you want to. Jadakiss has this line on a mixtape. It's one of my favorite rap lines ever. He said, I got niggas up north doing life in jail that's way smarter than the white boys at Harvard or Yale.
Mm.
He's not saying that the white boys are stupid. He's saying that you take my guys.
Smarter.
Right. He said we're smarter but he's also explaining the socioeconomic differences all right there. Like there's so many ways to unpack that one bar.
Like if they had the opportunities that an old boy had, then we wouldn't be in this situation.
Like, yeah, and Jadakiss does that a lot. Like he has another bar where he says, I know niggas that go to jail just to get their teeth fixed, because the dental care is free when you're in jail. So it might be easier for somebody. Let's say your mouth is like really, really messed up. It might be easier for you to like rob somebody, make some money, and then go get locked up for it, get your teeth fixed, and come out and have a little bit of money.
Wow.
Because we
don't have to talk about. I know who Jadakiss is, obviously, but like I don't know much about his music at all. Like, but I hear his name like on like near the top of MC lists. Like,
you want to know what?
So we need to talk about him because I want to learn. At some point, we don't have to do it now, but
no. I would just say, just real quick, when we get done, go listen to "Why." That's probably the song that would be best suited for our format of this show. "Why" by Jadakiss, which is produced by Havoc of Mobb Deep.
Okay.
There's a lot of hip hop in that too, so
I'll have to get on that. All right.
Yeah, that's cool. But that was really my take on that, and I think that's like a good place to like kind of transition to like what Snoop and Dre are doing on Nuthin But G Thang.
I always think of this as a Snoop song. I know it's not, but it's just on the Chronic. But it's in my head, it's a Snoop song. I mean, he does most of the verse work. I think. I think it's by numbers it's even, but yeah, I think of when I hear this song in my head, I think of his voice more than Dre's for sure.
Well, because Snoop wrote the Chronic with the DOC. Dr. Dre is the producer. He's the conductor. He's the Quincy Jones of hip hop, but he's not the MC. And so the words being shared by both men, well, Snoop and the DOC wrote these words, and so if these records feel like they're Snoop's records, it's because they kind of are from the writer's perspective. And so that's where that comes from.
His cadence is very distinctive for sure.
It's one of the amazing draws to him. So one of the things about Snoop when he first stepped onto the scene is that people felt he had the smoothest delivery and flow they had heard since Rakim.
Okay.
And so Snoop was getting immediately compared flow and delivery wise to Rakim.
I can see that. I never would have made that comparison before, but yeah, he is. It's that kind of gliding, I guess, kind of on the beat, right?
Yes. It's like he's just floating on it so easily. It's like, how is he doing it? Because
the rhythms and stuff that he's using, that's not easy to do at all,
or normal for the times either. It was almost like, I don't want to say he was hearing the beat totally differently than anybody that came before him, because I don't think it's that major, but I think he just found a pocket in terms of how to ride it that worked for him in a way where it had never worked for anybody before. Because here's the thing. He's the first guy that's considered this great that's not super lyrical.
Right.
And the delivery and the flow and the voice is like all of that. And so that's what I mean is like, well, he's immediately different, because the guys that are getting revered like him are lyrically saying things bar-wise and subject matter-wise. Rakim, Chuck D, Ice Cube.
Right.
KRS-One. Slick Rick, all of these guys, they have personalities, they have charisma, they have content, they have subject matter, and they have great flows and voices and cadence. So it's like, that's what I mean. It's like, well, he lyrically wasn't what those guys were.
No.
But he was considered to be one of them. And this record is the start of that.
This is his like jumping off point, right? This is the well, it's not the first. Like you said earlier, that there was another
Not the
song that he
jumping
introduced
off
him, but
point. So the Chronic comes out, I believe, what, December of '92, November, December of 1992. The year before, there's a movie called Deep Cover with Lawrence Fishburne as the
okay,
star, where he's playing an undercover cop. That's the first time that you hear Dre and Snoop. So you're hearing Snoop for the first time on Deep Cover in 1991.
okay,
So this is a year later. And probably in the recording process, probably 6 to 9 months after Deep Cover, I would venture to say.
mm-hmm.
Well, he's gotten much fucking better since then. Like, Deep Cover is a great song and one of my favorite records. But one of the reasons that it's not remembered, maybe the way that it even should be, is because Snoop's not Snoop yet.
Okay.
Snoop is Snoop right here. This is where it starts. Kind of, sort of. This is the second single off of The Chronic. The first one is Dre Day. Okay? Dre Day is a diss record to Eazy-E and to Uncle Luke and to Tim Dog. Tim Dog's a rapper out of New York who made a song called Fuck Compton once upon a time. And Dr. Dre and Uncle Luke had an unfortunate run-in. I'd have to check because that story's been told a few different ways too. And then obviously the Eazy-E thing for obvious reasons. So Dre Day is the first single, and it's called Dre Day. So Snoop is very much robbing on that record to a beautiful extent, you know? And he still has the scene-stealing moments on there, even though it's Dre's diss record, you know?
Right. Okay.
On Nuthin But a G Thing is kind of like, I guess the best way I could say it is like, do you remember when Kobe became as good as Shaq?
Yeah.
And like they deserved equal billing, and it wasn't like, I'm not robbing anymore. That's kind of like what Nuthin But a G Thing was in a sense. It's like, this isn't Dre's right-hand man anymore. This dude might be the man. You know what I mean?
At the very least, he's like on that same...
Deep Cover and Dre Day don't make you feel that way. It makes you feel like he's still sidekick. Great sidekick. But on Nuthin But a G Thing, he really steps out. And it's like, oh, this guy, not a star on camera yet, because the video, you can tell he's still shy. Oh, but the way he's flowing and how he's freaking and what he's saying and the way it relates, it's like, oh no, this guy's a star. It's like, this guy's a better rapper than Dre. Like, who's the guy?
Yeah. And Dre's a fine rapper from my perspective anyway. You obviously speak more to this, but that's not his thing. Like, that's not the thing that he's the best at. Right.
He's a dope rapper as far as producers are concerned, but part of what makes him a dope rapper, it's like, well, wouldn't you be dope if Ice Cube started off writing your stuff and MC Ren wrote your stuff and Snoop wrote your stuff and the DLC wrote your stuff and Eminem wrote your stuff?
That's a pretty good list of lyricists. Yeah.
And Nas wrote your stuff. Right. Like, he literally has had some of the greatest MCs of all time write his stuff from the jump. Like, his Express Yourself is written by Ice Cube.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So he's literally had some of the best like, he walked into this game with the best writer that the West Coast had seen. Like, Ice Cube, from the moment Ice Cube came on, best MC and writer and lyricist the West Coast has seen. I don't care what anybody says. Like, period, point blank, right? From the moment he, boom. Dre had that in his pocket from the jump. So yeah, Dre's a dope rapper. He always had literally the best at his disposal, because having Ice Cube at his disposal set the stage for him to have everything and everybody else at his disposal.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So
like, if I can have this guy, then like, not quite who are you, but if he will do this, then there's no reason you shouldn't as well.
Well, you go from Ice Cube to the DOC, and now you got Snoop. This is where it all starts. And so Snoop is his tipping point, because of course Dre's a big deal, but Dre's a big deal has a producer and has a member of NWA. Snoop helped make Dre, the artist, the star on The Chronic. And this is the start of that too. Okay. So, and it's not complicated too, you know. This is what I mean. Sometimes styles win fights. The most memorable moment of this song is probably outside of the beat itself, which we could have a whole conversation and show on the beat. We really could, because it's arguably the greatest beat in hip hop history.
Oh wow.
It's one of those beats. This is arguably the greatest beat in hip hop history.
I
There are
remember you
other
saying like when you go over your like top 5 hip hop songs, this is always one of the songs that's on that list.
yeah. Easy. This song will never not be one of the 10 greatest rap songs ever. It's too important. It's too dope. That beat is too far ahead of its time from a production standpoint, engineering standpoint of mixing and mastering a song. I want you to understand, like, you can play this record right now, beat wise in your car and turn up the volume, and it still sounds better engineering wise than about 98% of what you hear today.
Yeah, I listened to it today before the show, like on like higher end headphones, whatever. You can hear the bass line and the whole. I mean, it's
You can hear
nice.
everything. So
Yeah.
this is 1991, 92. Like nobody rap wise is making a beat of this quality, just from the engineering's perspective. Like, it's not sounding this clean, it's not sounding this crisp, it's not sounding this even or balanced. It's so beat wise, it's there. But you got Snoop, and he's like playing around on the beat, falling back on that ass with a hellified gangster lean. It's like that's the part where you're like, yeah, getting funky on the mic like an old batch of collard greens.
Yep.
It's not complicated, and I keep telling people this. It's like, oh, some of the best stuff, like writing a rap song, is probably the hardest pull in rap music. And so the guys that can do it in a simple way and pull it off are some of the best to me. Nobody pulls it off easily better than Snoop, like in terms of how it sounds, how it feels, and what you're saying, and you still buy in. There's nothing heavy about that at all.
Right.
Falling back on that ass with a hellified gangster lead, getting funky on the mic like an old batch of collard greens. There's nothing complicated about it. It just feels right when he says it. It feels right, and you're there with him in that moment. It's almost like he's leaning back in his car, falling back
You're
on
all
the
like doing this
You're
too.
leaning back in yours too when he does it. And then he gets into a style. It's the capital S and yes and fresh and double P D O double G Y D O double G. You see? Okay, so when he did all of that, no, guys couldn't do that then.
Like I was going to not try to do it, but like cite that as one of the most famous parts of the song.
Yeah.
But I can't.
So here's the body of him as an MC, and this is what I mean. It's very Rakim like. Well, you can probably count the guys on one hand in 91 and 92 that could flip their words like that. And so even though what he was saying wasn't complicated, the guys that could flip their words like that did not do it as effortlessly as Snoop just did it right there. And so it had everybody else like you trying to do it. It's the capital S and yes and fresh and double O-P, D-O double G-Y, D-O double G. You see, Andrew, I do it so easily. I've been practicing it my whole life because it was one of those things.
Right.
Where it's like, no. Do you know how to say that part where is that what he's saying? How does he do it? Do it again. Because if you could do that part, you were somebody in the neighborhood. It's very comparable to when Bone first came out with Thuggish Ruggish Bone, and if you could spit one of their verses, it was something. If you could do Snoop's part on Nothing But a G Thing, it was something. Guys didn't rap like that, and they definitely didn't make it sound as funky as it did, because it did sound funky when he did it to that.
Yeah, it does.
It does. It sounds right. This is right place, right time, right moment, right feeling. Supersedes all that lyrical miracle stuff.
Like, I mean, and the other like iconic part that everybody does, like even everybody who does looks like me does, is like this and like that and like this and like that. Like, and clearly that's one of the simplest lyrics in the history of music, but it sticks, and everybody says. I mean, I still say it in class sometimes too, and people look at me like, "How do you know?"
It's the most. Okay, so let's. Let's juxtapose this song. So Nothing But a G Thing is 1992. That's the best rap record that year. Let's go to the best rap record of 1993, in my opinion, which is Cream by Wu-Tang Clan.
Right.
Listen to the differences in what's going on with the hook. They're over there on the West Coast, and all they got to do is drop. It's like this and like that and like this, and it's like that and like this and like that, and it's like this. They're over there on the East Coast, literally coming up with whole acronyms for the hooks. Cash rules everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar, dollar bill, y'all. And I'm juxtaposing those songs because they're both probably, in my opinion,
iconic.
Two of the 10 greatest rap songs ever. There's different ways to win these fights. Okay? Like Nothing But a G Thing and Cream are on the same level, but for totally different reasons.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Like the Beat the Cream is great, and it's one of like The beat the cream is up there with Nothing But a G Thing is one of the best beats ever, but it doesn't sound as good engineering wise. It doesn't sound clean. It doesn't sound as crisp. Now on an MC level, in terms of rapping, right there, you want to rap on either one of those beats. Give me either one. A lyricist probably wants to rap over Cream more. You know, a hip hop head just wants to rap over either one. Cream is clearly the superior hook with the superior lyrics. Most people tell you Nothing But a G Thing's the better song. It feels better.
The feeling of it, yeah, sure. Like,
and it matters.
It makes you happy. Like, even though the lyrical content is not necessarily like celebratory, it's more aggressive, like Santeria is too. Like, it's that kind of lyric. I mean, he even says, like, he tells Dre they say, I forget who says to who, that they want some more of that gangster, like that G shit, I think is what he says, right? Yeah. And so they're just doing that.
I think they in the mood for some motherfucking G shit. So Dre, what up, dog? We got to give them what they want. What's that, G? We got to break them off something. Hell yeah. And it's got to be bumping. City of Compton.
Yep.
Nothing about that back and forth is complicated.
No. And they use it together. I mean, like that City of Compton comes back again in California Love. It comes back in, I don't know if it comes from something before that too, but like.
That's what I'm saying. He's been using that since Straight Outta Compton.
I figured it probably was. Yeah.
Easy used it when he did Real Motherfucking G's, which is the Dr. Dre disc. The Easy E song starts with Compton.
Okay.
And Easy's really the G from Compton. You know what I'm saying? Like Drake, like so this is what I mean about how, like, this is the point too where people have to understand the music business is different than how the streets work. Dre's not the street guy, Easy's the street guy. Okay. But Dre's the one that's running around with Nothing But a G Thing in his pocket with Snoop. So he looks like the G. You feel what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah.
That's how hip hop works. You know?
Okay. You gotta have the song.
Yeah. You gotta have the record to go with it too. It's like, no. You can't just be like, but Dre's from Compton. Was he a street dude like Easy? No. Drug it? No. No. Dre never really. Dre been a pistol toter about safety, not about no. Dre never gangbang. No. Like, he's not that guy. And it's okay. I keep telling people, like, just being from the hood is enough. You don't have to be that guy.
You still see stuff.
Yeah, you still see stuff, go through stuff. He knows Easy. He obviously seeing something.
Yep.
Right. He rolling with Easy. You're hanging out with Easy. Just like when I tell you about some of the friends I used to roll with on Beatty's Ford and West Boulevard. It's like, no. You see stuff. Even if you're not doing stuff, it's like, no. Those are your friends. You see stuff. So you're coming from an environment and from a community. And listen, what I'm about to say. This is probably the best West Coast community record ever.
Okay.
It describes everything down to the video. It describes like what they do and how they do it, even down to how it feels. This is how a day in the summertime in Long Beach and Compton and Watts and Inglewood feels like. When you're seeing them turning around and they got their Lolos and they're on the Daytons with the white walls and they're spinning and they got it back. No, you really see that like in the summertime in Cali. Like every time I used to pull into my neighborhood, the SAs that used to gangbang in my neighborhood would have their Chevys out in the summertime and would literally be sitting on the roof of their Chevys, bouncing the motherfuckers like playing Tupac. It's not a cliche or a stereotype. It's a real thing. What is it? Next Friday with Ice Cube?
Yep.
The SAs. No, that's not a cliche. It's really like that. You'll pull out of your neighborhood and there'll be 4 or 5 essays over there, like with their shit all kitted up, like bouncing, playing Tupac. Like, Coop, you fuck with Pac, right? You from the South, but you fuck with Pac. And be like, no, I love Pac. And even if I didn't, I'm not telling you no. Not a safe thing to do.
Definitely not.
No. So that's kind of how that works. And so this record is really, this is what blows up Death Row Records.
Right.
This is what blows up the West Coast and puts their dominance in play. This blows up Snoop. This song starts everything. This song, not Deep Cover, not Dre Day, this song. Even at the end, and this is what I mean about how even the video is important to the culture. There's a stuck-up girl in the video, and at the end of the video, at the house party, they take 40 ounces and cover her in 40 ounces because she was acting uppity at the party. That's what I mean. It's like, no. That's what West Coast guys can be really disrespectful like that if they feel disrespected. It's different out there. It's different. You know,
that was one of the questions I wrote actually is, how does like the hip hop community like look on the women related language like now 30 years later? I mean, is it looked at differently now, or is it just
Unfortunately, not. This is one of those records that kind of got stuff like that grandfathered in. You have to understand, like, you're 18 months from maybe removed from Fight the Power being the biggest record in hip hop and arguably the biggest rap record ever. And then we're to a point where calling women bitches and hoes is becoming acceptable to some. And when I mean acceptable to some, a lot of people feel like there was an agenda in place by powers that be to prop this type of commentary and social rhetoric out of our community more. And there's some proof to life to that too, because the Chronic came out and did like 4 million records. Now, if you want to juxtapose that to his contemporary and former bandmate Ice Cube, when the Chronic is coming out, Ice Cube has already dropped 2 classic solo albums. Those 2 solo albums combined did what the Chronic did.
Okay.
But Ice Cube's commentary is different.
Right.
He's running with the Nation of Islam. Very black. It's very anti-establishment. It's very dangerous. It's calling these women bitches and hoes and talking about the gang culture in a very fun and accessible fashion. Seem to fit the record company's agenda more than the Ice Cubes and the Chuck D's and the Tupacs, for sure. And so there's some, there's some problematic things with this song and what it started too. It's not all good. Nothing ever is. That's like, people have to understand something. It's like when you read in history about a great king, people need to stop thinking that every year of their reign was great. Everything they did
was great. Like everything. Yeah.
Like I tell people, King David, man that in my faith is considered to be closest to Jesus. Well, he murdered people and committed adultery as well.
Yeah.
So, and he's considered to be the greatest king in the Old Testament.
Yep.
Same things in play here in modern day times when it comes to hip hop. No. Dr. Dre and Snoop are the man. This record is fire. It changed everything. It's very problematic too.
Yeah. I mean, he says he wants, at the end of like the first verse in the Santeria song too, he's talking about slapping his woman down. Like if he finds her, he's like, I want to slap her down. So I do want to point out, I want to be very clear about that's not, it is problematic, but it's not different from the rhetoric that's in this other song too.
So let's go to what we were talking about earlier with what's acceptable and what's not. Okay, so let's go to two artists with the same name. And you're familiar with both of them. Prodigy of Mobb Deep and Prodigy, the artist. What would you consider him to be? A pop artist? Punk? Dance?
Yeah.
Dance. So Prodigy from Mobb Deep tells these visceral street tales. It never reaches any sort of real notoriety of acclaim that he's deserved for his work, in my opinion.
Right. Okay.
Somebody who's a dance artist like Prodigy gets to make a song like Smack My Bitch Up.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfectly okay.
Yeah, it's not. And I mean, he's British too, I think. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm just
But you're absolutely right. I mean, there's no one got away with it in a much more clear kind of way than the other did.
Right. Sure. So Dre and Snoop aren't saying, well, smack my bitch up, but they're kind of saying, well, I might have to.
So watch yourself. Yeah.
So watch yourself. So they're kind of being careful about it. Ice Cube's more straight to the point about everything that he's saying. Chuck D is straight to the point about everything that he's saying. Rakim is straight to the point. See, these guys are starting to win a style fight. Dre and Snoop are. It's starting to be subtle. That's what I mean. It's like, you see, even when you talk about, I think they in the mood for some G shit. That's towards the end of the record. You know what I'm saying? How's it go? 1, 2, 3 into the 4. Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre is at the door.
That's another one of those iconic moments too.
Yeah. That's the most iconic start off to a rap song ever. It is. But that's what I mean. That Snoop voice that does that to you. It sounds so right when he says that. Nobody else was going to get away with that around that time except for maybe Rakim. 1, 2, 3 into the 4. No other artist was just about to say some numbers starting off the song.
I just want to count it off. Yeah.
It's the voice. It's the delivery. It's the style points. This is what I'm saying. They start winning style fights right now.
Yeah.
It was about the rhymes before Snoop started winning a style battle. Like, I got more style than you. I got more flavor than you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I got all of that more than you do. That's what he's starting to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so this is the record that starts that. So when he's starting it off 1, 2, 3 into the 4,
yeah,
that's different than any lead off that you normally hear.
mm-hmm.
You know, like let's go. There's so many places you can go. Let's go to Tupac's Brenda Got a Baby. Brenda's got a baby, but she barely knows. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's like he starts off beat. These guys are starting off like letting you know 1989, a number, another
Mm-hmm.
summer, get down, sound of the funky drummer. They're like literally giving you a James Brown historical reference to start off a song called Fight the Power. It's deep immediately. This and that, it's 1, 2, 3 into the 4.
It's like a rock and roll thing. That happens in like white people music all the time, like where you hear them like counted off at the beginning,
right,
and before they start.
And Snoop's our first real rock star. So that's
okay.
apropos. Snoop is the first artist to debut at #1. Doggy Style is the first rap album to go #1 on the Billboard charts. It was there for 4 weeks, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Doggy Style is the first rap album to sell 5 million records. So this was the start of all that. This record put all of that in motion.
Cool. Yeah. That makes sense.
But listen to what he's saying. Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre is at the door, ready to make an entrance. So back on up. Because you know we're about to rip shit up. You know, this is what I'm telling people about words are powerful. They kind of spoke their own prominence into existence. And then and this is where Snoop becomes a star. He literally goes, give me the microphone first so I can bust like a bubble. Compton and Long Beach together. Now you know you in trouble. Ain't nothing but a G thing, baby. Too low. Nobody's rapping like this on songs before. You get what I'm saying? Like that capital S and double OP in this bag. Nobody's doing either one of those.
It's kind of stretching it out a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, he's got style out the ass that we've never heard before. Nobody's rapped like this on a record before. I'm going to say that again. Nobody's rapped like this. Nobody's going nothing but a G thing, baby. Two loped out niggas going crazy. Death Row is the label that pays, man. So he knows how to stretch it out. But then he knows how to speed it up on the next verse. It's the capital S and yes and fresh and double O. You get what I'm saying? It's
he can do both.
He can do both. And so this is what I'm saying. You can hear on this one record, well, he could do everything almost on the mic except be super lyrical. And so it didn't matter as much.
He didn't need to be, right? Because he can do all the other things.
He's the first guy where it's like, well, he don't need to be super lyrical because he literally can do all the other things. And quite frankly, he does all the other things better than everybody else that's around right now.
Yeah.
Because
it's fun. It's fun.
Yes, and also too, KRS-One and Rakim and Cool. These guys are considered to be older now. Like rappers are on back years, so they're like in year number 5 or 6 or 7 when Snoop's coming around, and it's like, no, this dude's got it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the record, all that. And notice we haven't talked. There's nothing heavy to unpack about what they're saying on this record.
Not really, no.
No,
it's sort of a shout out to themselves. Like they're like talking. They're talking about and actually, like you said, creating their own legend. Like that's what's happening.
So we often talk about how, well, when we compare our songs, that the lyrical density often, like 95% of the time, falls on my side.
Oh, it absolutely does.
This is one of the times where that's not happened. The lyrical density actually falls on your side because these are the two guys who are rock stars. These are the rock stars of hip hop. This is Dre and Snoop. They're hip hop's first real rock stars.
Oh, cool.
And this record is a rock star record. I mean, when people do their top 10, like the top 20, like best rap songs ever list, it's usually like this record, Cream, Fight the Power, Children's Story by Slick Rick. Like it's this, like Juicy by Biggie, Dear Mama by Tupac, California Love.
Right.
This is one of those records. It's big, big, big.
Yeah.
Like it's big.
Yeah. I've mentioned it a couple times as we've gone through, but there are tons of lines that everybody quotes from both sides of the war. Like, and we've said many of them. And Real Deal Holyfield, I mean, that's another one too. Like that's right. Is that a thing that he made up for this song, or is that a thing that he's quoting from somewhere else?
No, Holyfield had just become the champ that year.
Okay.
That's the year Holyfield became the champ.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's a good timestamp piece too. They this is where they put shit on lock. This is where the West Coast took over. Like the West Coast was doing stuff, and Ice Cube. How about this? Ice Cube was considered to be the best MC in the game around this time. So when Dre and Snoop came with the Chronic, it's like, oh, the West got it. It's like they got Ice Cube, they got Dre, they got Snoop. There's this young dude named Tupac that's coming up doing movies and rapping. Smash.
Yep.
Yeah. This is around the same time Above the Rim's coming out. All of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all of this. So Ice Cube, Tupac, Dre, and Snoop, all that's happening between literally late 91 to late 93. Between 91 and 93, we get 2 full Ice Cube classic albums, Tupac's first album, 2 Tupac movie roles, Dre and Snoop on deep cover, The Chronic, and Doggy Style.
That's a lot.
Yeah, they got shit
and
on
enough to shout out the West Coast for sure.
Right. So when Doggy Style dropped in December of 93, that's a moment where it's like, no, they got shit on lock now. That's it. Or November. Sorry, that was November of 93, Doggy Style.
Okay.
Yep.
Is this also the beginning of them like shouting out their labels in songs? Like, I don't remember, I don't know enough to know, but like Death Row is the label that pays me. Like, I know it happens a ton like after this, but I can't think of one that happened before that.
I think you just taught me something because I just went through my mind. I can't think of anybody talking about their record label before this. Maybe LL Cool J may have said something about Def Jam. I feel like actually Def Jam artists were good for that. That's where Death Row got that from. Def Jam artists would say something from time to time. I'm almost certain. Sometimes they would say it like in a shady manner, I believe. But still, I believe that's a Def Jam play, and Def Jam was the cornerstone hip hop label, period, and still, and actually still is. That Def Jam is still hip hop's cornerstone label.
Okay, because I know Bad Boy does and Rockefeller does, and like, I mean, yeah, like tons of others.
But that's very striking that you say that, because it's like, because even with that, I can't think of one record where Biggie is shouting out Bad Boy like that. Not like that.
No. Like all the other references that I know of are like slid in at the end of the song or whatever, and this is like part of the hook. This is like an important part of the song.
No, that's what I mean. Is it's like, no, you might have a point with that. I need to do some research on that, because you know what I thought about? I thought about Outkast and what Big Boy said on Get Up, Get Out off their first album, which was the 3rd single. Kind of slid it in at the back of his verse. I'm also down with LaFace and L.A. Reid because he pays me. But like you said, he slid it in on the back of his verse on the 3rd single. It wasn't like some moniker that was put
It's
up.
not like everybody's singing Death Row is the label that pays, man.
No,
like, everybody's not singing that, right?
Now that I'm thinking about it, that helped Death Row immensely.
I would imagine probably so.
No, that did. You're right. Okay. Giving me something to go research too. That's cool.
Good.